hairstyles in accord with the rule of Saint Benedict. They donned the distinctive white vestments of Bernard's Cistercian brotherhood, adding a red cross at the center of the chest. According to Bernard, God had elected such men to himself, carefully choosing and appointing them to fight in his name. These warrior monks were to wage the double fight against evil, spiritually and physically. Now, where have we heard that before? Killing barbarians was not only permitted, justified as malicide rather than homicide, but actually encouraged by the promise of an instant place in heaven. This ideology helped recruit thousands of knights into the order, inspiring acts of courage and heroism, since death in battle meant martyrdom. So now we see what is driving this Middle East crusade today, this fight against evildoers, and the idea of giving one's life, suicide really, to gain a place in heaven. All false promises, of course. Well, the Knights Templars, there were a number of crusades. In 1118, 9 Knights Templars in the Crusaders in the East, among whom were Godefroy de Saint-Omer and Hugues de Payens, consecrated themselves to religion and took an oath between the hands of the Patriarch of Constantinople, a see always secretly or openly hostile to that of Rome from the time of Photius. Now, the avowed objective of the Templars was to protect the Christians who came to visit the holy places, but their secret object was the rebuilding of the Temple of Solomon. This rebuilding, formally predicted by the Judaizing mystics of the earlier ages, had become the secret dream also of the patriarchs of the Orient. So we see that they're bringing the patriarchs of the Orient into their scheme of things, if they were not already involved, and we believe that they were. This, of course, was the Byzantine Empire that had split off from Rome, the Roman Empire, over the issue of the papacy. The Temple of Solomon rebuilt, and I'm reading from the Johannite legend of the Templars. The Temple of Solomon, rebuilt and consecrated to the Catholic worship, would become, in effect, the metropolis of the universe. The East would prevail over the West, and the patriarchs of Constantinople would possess themselves of the papal power. And we have found evidence that the Knights Templars were colluding with the patriarchs of the East, and certainly there was enough mysticism in that church, and still is today, to build a natural alliance between the Templars and the East. But anyway, the demise of the Templars occurred in 1307. They were forced to flee to Scotland. Their crusades had come to nothing. They never rebuilt their temple. But the Zionist movement did not stop with the demise of the Templars. The Prieuré des Zions continued to function very quietly in Paris. A number of Templars fled to Scotland, and there they established the Rosicrucians. And from Great Britain and from France, there were established throughout the world a network of secret societies, the precursors of what we have today. In 1534, during the time of the Reformation, the Jesuits, the Society of Jesus, was founded by Ignatius of Loyola. Now, many Catholics will be surprised to find out that Ignatius was a Marrano Jew. And he and his 5 associates, who were also Jewish, set up this society supposedly to counter the Reformation that had been started by Martin Luther. But the Jesuits continued within the Catholic Church to function as an operation of covert Jewry. And many of the Secretary Generals of the Society of Jesus were Jewish. And so here's another example of crypto-Jews using a spiritual order that has the outward appearance of being not only Gentile but Christian, and thereby giving the whole Christian church a bad name. Now, that's what was going on in Roman Catholicism, but on the other side we have the Reformation taking place. And it's very interesting to find out that one of our reformers, John Calvin, also Jewish. I'm going to quote from a series of speeches at the B'nai B'rith Convention in Paris in 1936. This was published in the London Catholic Gazette, February 1936, and it was also published in the Paris Review of the People in that same year. And I'm just quoting a small excerpt from these speeches. Now, when I say B'nai B'rith, think House of Rothschild, think Priori de Zion, think Illuminati, because these are all one and the same, just various fronts for this occult power elite within world Jewry. And they stated, we are the fathers of all revolutions, even of those which sometimes happen to turn against us. We are the supreme masters of peace and war. We can boast of being the creators of the Reformation. Calvin was one of our children. He was of Jewish descent and was entrusted by Jewish authority and encouraged with Jewish finance to draft his schemes in the Reformation, which was to convince Christians it was all right to charge usury because this had been prescribed by the Catholic Church. I'm ad-libbing here. This is not part of this speech. But that there were other damnable heresies that Calvin introduced in violation of God's law. Calvin's original name was Cohen. This was brought out in this in these speeches at B'nai B'rith conference. And Calvin certainly set up a Judaized version of Christianity, not a whole lot different from the Catholic Church. And John Calvin even had people killed for heresy, same as the Catholic Church. And Calvin also was an ecumenist. He wanted to have ecumenical conferences with the Pope. Now, of course, by this time, the popes are fully under the thumb of the Merovingians, but it's very interesting that we find Calvin among their number. In 1776, 2 centuries after the Reformation, the House of Rothschild was founded. Now we've talked about the meaning of the word of the name Rothschild. It really means Ruth's child. And this is a reference to Solomon, who was a descendant of Ruth, who is in the lineage of Jesus Christ. Now, the House of Rothschild was founded in 1776 in Frankfurt, Germany, by Mayor Amschel Rothschild. Mayer fathered 5 boys who would establish the most successful merchant banking network in England, France, Austria, Prussia, and Italy. Each of his 5 sons went to one of these countries and basically took over the financials of each country because they brought the monarchies, the governments, into debt to the House of Rothschild. In 1823, we provided evidence that the House of Rothschild took over the financial operations of the Catholic Church. And this is even stated in the Jewish Encyclopedia. In 1836, Rothschild purchased land in Palestine. Now, the end is beginning to come into sight for the House of Rothschild. They're buying land in Palestine. In 1836, Zevi Kalisher appealed to Mayor Amschel Rothschild to buy out completely the land of Israel, or at least Jerusalem, and particularly the temple area, in order to bring about the miraculous redemption from below. Zevi Kalisher said the salvation promised by the prophets of old could come only gradually and by self-help from the Jews. And I'm quoting there from O.J. Graham's Six-Pointed Star. That was in 1836. Now we come to a very interesting and not very well-known year in history, 1837. There is a profile of Adolf Hitler in the file of the Office of Strategic Services. This was the precursor of our CIA. This profile of Adolf Hitler discovered that Baron Salomon Mayer Rothschild of Vienna fathered the grandfather of Adolf Hitler, which would make Adolf Hitler partially Jewish. There is also evidence on our website that Hitler is related to Pierre Plantard de St. Clair through his wife, Anna Maria Hissler, which would make Hitler a relative of Pierre Plantard's son, Thomas, who is next in line, who is really the only living descendant who is qualified to sit on the throne of Israel. But I want to read a little bit from this OSS, the Office of Strategic Services profile, about Alois Hitler. His name was Heidler at that point. Of course, after Hitler, everyone went about, all of the Hitlers went about changing their names, and even before then, there was some of this. But I just will read a portion of this. There are some people who seriously doubt that Johann Georg Heidler was the father of Alois. Tyson and Kohler, for example, claim that Chancellor Dollfuss had ordered Austrian police to conduct a thorough investigation into the Hitler family. As a result of this investigation, a secret document was prepared, which proves that Maria Anna Schlickelgruber, who was Hitler's grandmother, was living in Vienna at the time she conceived. At that time, she was employed as a servant in the home of Baron Rothschild. As soon as the family divorced, she was sent back to her home in Spital, where Alois was born. If it is true that one of the Rothschilds is the real father of Hitler, Adolf Alois Hitler, it would make Adolf a quarter Jew. According to these sources, Adolf Hitler knew of the existence of this document and the incriminating evidence it contained. In order to obtain it, he precipitated events in Austria and initiated the assassination of Dollfuss. According to this story, he failed to obtain the document at that time, since Dollfuss had secreted it and had told his associate of its whereabouts, so that in the event of his death, the independence of Austria would remain assured. Several stories of this general character are in circulation, and that is on file in the Office of Strategic Services. It's not a rumor. It's on the Internet in a number of places, and it's documented on our website. Okay, that was in 1837 that the grandfather of Adolf Hitler was conceived. In 1843, the B'nai B'rith was founded, and remember, the B'nai B'rith stands for the Sons of the Covenant. The B'nai B'rith laid the groundwork for the establishment of a Jewish homeland. And I just want to read a little bit about B'nai B'rith. One of the most powerful Jewish societies in the world is the Independent Order of B'nai B'rith. In Hebrew, this literally means Sons of the Covenant, being that of the circumcision. Founded in New York In 1843, the order